Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's February 24th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt, I think I'm going to start today with the story about Frank Ladson, which I thought was really, really interesting, and it's nice to hear from Frank. Obviously, the transfer from Clemson probably should have been a Miami Hurricane coming out of high school. Miami did a horrible job recruiting him coming out of high school. He went to Clemson, had injury issues. Things didn't go as planned there. Now he's back. He's a Miami Hurricane. And, obviously there's interest in, how he is health-wise and all that. But the thing that he said that really struck me and I think is open to a little bit of conversation and debate here on Good Morning CaneSport is his impressions, opinions, whatever you want to call it, that there's not a distinct difference between the roster at Miami and the roster at Clemson. And on face value, I would say, Frank Ladson, you're out of your mind that, Clemson is far ahead of Miami. But you know what? Then you start to peel back the onion a little bit. They struggled last season. The quarterback has not turned out to be quite as good as maybe they had planned and hoped. And Miami's doing a good job right now in recruiting and in the transfer portal. So the gap is probably narrowing a little bit. And maybe it's not out of the question, Matt, that by the time these teams play next season, that they could be a lot closer in quality than people would have expected.
You notice I'm not wearing my glasses this morning, right?
I noticed.
Yeah, the reason is I gave them to Frank Ladson because obviously he's not seeing very well. He thinks that what he sees at Miami is the same as what he saw at Clemson. I disagree with him.
They struggled last year.
I think that he's excited to be a Miami Hurricane, which is great. And everyone says I'm negative, whatever. Like I just learned someone yesterday. Listen, someone's like, "You're not a Miami fan. You're too negative." I'm not on this show to be a Miami fan. I could say everything's great all the time and how wonderful everything is all the time. But listen, over the last 10 or 15 years, I've just said what I thought, and I haven't said how great things have been. And guess what? They haven't been great. And fans always want everything to be great this time of year. And, oh, my gosh, Miami's as good as Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State and Oklahoma. And it's sure you could say that. But I try to be realistic. And I understand why Frank would say something like that because right now they're just doing workouts. And, personally, I think probably Clemson, the Miami workouts are as good or maybe even better than the Clemson workouts, right? I think that Mario Cristobal has instilled that and installed some of these different things that certainly could be better than Clemson's. But at the same time, I think if you look at the Clemson, we were talking about yesterday, the physicality of some of these teams and just the recruits they get and the size of the recruits they get, it's just not the same. You can just eyeball it and say it's not the same. It isn't. It is not. Like, that's a fact. So it's great Frank says it. I'm glad Frank's excited. Me being negative Nancy, Nelly, Nilly, Willie, Billy, Hilly, I don't think that Miami's right there with Clemson yet. I think it's going to be a little bit of time in terms of the actual athleticism and size.
Well, one of our loyal viewers astutely noticed yesterday that when I cross my arms on the show, it means I've heard enough. And so I'm going to take on that character a little bit. I'll start out. I'll agree with you on the fact that we're here to be analysts. We're here to take a step backwards and give an honest, quality analysis of what's going on with the team. Yeah. And, it certainly, obviously, when we show up at the stadium, we want to see Miami win. But in our roles here at CaneSport, we're supposed to tell you guys out there watching what the real deal is. Okay. So Matt's right about that. Okay. Here's what I'm sure he's not right about. Let's take a look at coaching staffs to start out. Okay. Clemson is reeling. Clemson is going backwards. Clemson has lost their coordinators. I'm going to even question now with things starting to go south a little bit, they even lost their damn athletic director to Miami. And things are not so hunky-dory in Clemson, South Carolina right now. And I'm going to throw out the concept of, is Dabo Swinney even as invested as he was when things were, so great and hunky-dory? And I'm not convinced that that's the case either.
This is not what Frank Ladson was talking. Just to be clear, Frank Ladson was talking about the talent gap.
Can I finish, please? I'm talking about the program.
You're not even talking about what he's talking about.
Finish? If you want to cross your arms. I don't care. Let me finish what I'm saying. I think Miami is now better than Clemson with coaches. Okay? I like Mario Cristobal. I like his staff. I like the guys he's hired. I think they are better than what they have at Clemson right now. Okay? So that's a checkbox for Miami before you even get to the rosters. Okay. Quarterback. I'm not trading Tyler Van Dyke for that guy at Clemson that disappointed everybody last year. No way, man. I mean, him and Tyler Van Dyke had equal experience, which was basically none. And which quarterback would you take coming into this year? I mean, it's not even a debate. I take Tyler Van Dyke, okay? I look at the stable of running backs Miami has. Maybe there's not a superstar, but they're good at running back. I think they're better than Clemson at tight end. I think at wide receiver, they're comparable. Offensive line, I got to think Clemson probably has an edge still, I would think. But you also are getting better coaching at Miami. We'll see how that plays out as the season gets here. I got to believe Clemson has an edge on defense right now. But Miami continues to get better on defense with transfers. And quality signings, but I'm not sure, even though guys like Cyrus Moss are highly touted, I'm not sure you can count on them so much this season. But you can count on a Jake Lichtenstein. I think it's looking pretty good that Miami's going to land another cornerback in Darryl Porter Jr., and that'll fortify that position a lot. And Miami is continuously getting better. And so when I look at the concept of, where Miami stacks up talent-wise and program-wise with Clemson, Matt, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure the gap is not even close to what it was, say, 5 years ago.
I mean, what you're talking about is just not what Frank Ladson was talking about. Frank Ladson wasn't talking about the coaching staff, the strength staff, the recruiting
I'm elaborating on what
Frank Ladson was talking about the talent gap on the field. And if you believe at all in recruiting rankings, even just looking at, if you believe that the guy who's ranked number 1 in a class is going to be bigger, faster, stronger than the guy who's ranked number 50 in a class, which I personally believe that, I don't believe in the star rankings when it comes to 3 years down the road, because there's a lot mental, there's a lot more goes into it. But when I think talent gap, I'm thinking, is this guy better physically, bigger, faster, stronger than the next guy on the other team? That's the talent gap to me. And if you are or aren't. So when you look at the talent gap, I mean, Clemson, these are the facts, okay? Just Rivals.com rankings, which are not always right, but Clemson was number 6 in the country in 2021, number 2 in the country in his class in 2020, and number 9 in the country in 2019. If you just look at their roster talent in terms of what they've gotten out of 5 stars and 4 stars, it's better than Miami's roster. Now, if Frank Ladson comes in and eyeballs the Miami guys and eyeballs the Clemson guys and says the Miami 3 and 4 star guys that Manny Diaz brought in and the transfers that have come in are better than the Clemson 4 and 5 stars they brought in, okay, who might argue? Who might argue with you, Gary?
You're nobody to argue with me. I agree. That's why I'm right. But no, in all seriousness, it's going to be an interesting debate all the way through the season. I really think it is. And I'm going to be very, very intrigued to see what kind of season the Clemson has this year and what kind of season Miami is able to put together. I think both are wide open. I think they can go in any direction, and it's going to be a fun college football season this fall. All right, let's move on. So we got the Frank Ladson story on the site today. We also take our first spring preview look at a position group, and that's the quarterback position, Matt. And we do agree on this, that the quarterback room is in a decent spot. I mean, you want to see Jake Garcia get healthy. There's still question how much Jake Garcia is going to be able to participate in the spring. But with Ja'Cory Brown coming in, you still even have a Peyton Matocha there who's got a few years in the program. He's never going to play, but at least he's still a guy that's there. The quarterback room's in decent shape, and it's going to be fun to see what Ja'Cory Brown can do in spring practice and how much Jake Garcia is ready for.
Yeah, I mean, look, you mentioned Clemson versus Miami. If it's Clemson versus Miami, you're just looking at the quarterback room, I'll take Miami every single time, which is what you said. 100% agree. I think where Miami has the talent gap really is offensive line, defensive line with Clemson. But anyway, yeah, the quarterback situation at Miami is the best I've seen probably since, I said it before, since Ken Dorsey. I mean, I'm a Jake Garcia believer. I'm a Ja'Cory Brown believer, and we already saw what Tyler Van Dyke can do. The future of the Miami offense is amazing. Defense has to rise to the challenge. We'll get to the defense in a few days, but the defense has to rise to the challenge. And if they do, this is a complete team. I mean, we've seen it seesaw back and forth so many times. Defense in 2018 was really good. Offense was terrible. Then it flips a couple of years later, right? And the defense isn't good and the offense is good. So this is the challenge for Mario Cristobal. And finally, with the staff, I think they can start to get it going to where the defense will at least be average this year. And with a great offense and an average defense, you should win the ACC Coastal and then play a Clemson team that doesn't have a talent gap, right? So we should beat Clemson also.
The way you get better is you keep adding pieces. And that takes me to the next topic of conversation, and that's one Darryl Porter Jr. Cornerback from American Heritage High, went to West Virginia, played a lot of football at West Virginia, has 3 years of eligibility left, and now is in the transfer portal, and Miami is very much in the picture. But there are competitors, Matt, and I personally think that Darryl Porter Jr. will end up at Miami. I think he will be an important piece to next year's Hurricane football team. I'm surprised what's taken him so damn long, but your thoughts on Darryl Porter Jr., how much can he mean, and does he become a Miami Hurricane?
Have you ever interviewed a politician before? Because talk to Darryl Porter's father.
I don't understand what he's doing. Like, why is he being a politician?
If you want to understand why he's doing what he's doing, talk to Darryl Porter's father, Darryl Porter Sr., because – and I was joking with Darryl Sr. about it. I said, listen, Darryl, I can tell you've been trained by every media relations staff in the NFL and in college. And, because I'd ask him a question and he'd answer some other question that had nothing to do with the question I answered. And when I told him that, he sort of laughed. He's a nice guy. He's been coaching it at American Heritage for a long time. He knows how this thing goes, and he doesn't want to tell anybody what's actually going on. It was nice of him to talk to me for 10 or 15 minutes. It was like the Jerry Seinfeld show about nothing talking to him because he really didn't want to say anything. But when you read between the lines, the kid's going to be a Hurricane. There's no rush. I mean, the dad wants him to decide, but there's really no rush. He can't enroll until May at the earliest, which is 3 months away. And he could say tomorrow, I'm going to Miami, and great, but there's nothing really for him to sign or to do until he enrolls and enrolls in summer school. So yeah, he's still enrolled in West Virginia for this semester, so it'd be sort of weird for him to announce he's going to Miami when he's still enrolled technically at another school. So I think in 2 or 3 weeks, when he's done with his classes up there, that he's taking remotely, then he'll announce he's coming to Miami, and it'll be great because if you look at the story today, we broke down some of the Pro Football Focus numbers, and aside from Tyreek Stevenson, the Miami coverage stats weren't good. The percentages weren't good for anybody. Marcus Clark was the second best, not even touching 70, and this is a kid who was over 70. And Miami was 102nd in yards allowed passing last year, which you could say some of it was on the defensive line, maybe not having great pressure all the time. But at the end of the day, that's pretty bad for a Miami team. 102nd in passing yards allowed. And aside from the Pittsburgh quarterback and the North Carolina quarterback, who'd they play? I guess the Alabama quarterback. Three good quarterbacks. But other than those three, there really wasn't a lot of guys where you say, they should really scare you. I mean, just some of those teams that were the Central Connecticut States of the world, the Dukes of the world, those alone should have, put Miami in the top half for the year. So anyway, yeah, they need this kid. I think they get this kid, and it's going to be huge if and when they do get him because, he's right there with Tyreek Stevenson, I think, in terms of natural ability. And he's an American Heritage kid. It's also good to start getting these Heritage kids on campus. Now you'll have a kid on campus whose dad is a longtime coach at American Heritage. That certainly doesn't hurt anything with those kids. You've got to get IMG and American Heritage and St. Thomas Aquinas. You get those three schools, you get them locked down, and Miami Central locked down. This team's going to go places, period. Just those 4 schools alone.
Especially when you factor in how Miami's recruiting outside of South Florida and the effort that's going into kids up in the upper parts of the state, outside of state. This is a true national recruiting effort. And so if you're locking down South Florida and then you're going out and you're getting your share as you go further up the state and into other states, Matt's right, you will be rocking and rolling. And it appears Miami is on that track. All right. And lastly, today we have a story on one of those recruits, 2023 tight end from Orlando Edgewater by the name of Camp McGee. Interesting name. And he got offered in January. Miami remains hot on his trail. Matt, your read right now on how the recruitment of Camp McGee is going.
Well, it's an interesting name because he doesn't like his first name, and so he goes with his middle name, which I think is Campbell, so he shortened it to Camp. So that's why he's got the name Camp. It's not that he's constantly, going to summer camps and he decided this is going to be his new name or something weird like that. As for his recruitment, it's interesting, right? Because Stephen Fields recruiting him, but I'm not sure Stephen Fields is going to stay as the tight ends coach. He might wind up in the recruiting department or something, and they're going to have to sort of figure out what's going on here. He's sort of a lighter kid. I think Miami is, he's sort of a tight end wide receiver tweener. He's actually listed as a wide receiver by Rivals, but he's being recruited as a tight end. But I think at the end of the day, the kind of tight end Miami wants is sort of a bigger, more physical, run blocking capable tight end who also can go out and make some plays, Think of Vernon Davis type. This is not a Vernon Davis type. This is trying to think of a DeLeon Farr type, I guess, for those longtime Miami Hurricane fans. That's who he's sort of, underweight, but tall, lanky, and good receiver. So I'm curious to see if they really keep going after him. He looked really good at the Under Armour camp. Excellent receiver. And again, I think it comes down with him to Miami's got to evaluate, is he really a tenacious blocker or not? And then if he is, they'll go after him pretty hard. And there's a shot with him. He's from Orlando. He's got a bunch of schools after him. So, it's still a little bit early. It's not like this is not an Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, whatever, you name it, Penn State type kid. This is a Iowa State, West Virginia, BC type kid, right? So, and that's because of what I just said. So we'll see. I'll be curious to see if Miami keeps going after him hard. If they do, they certainly have as good a shot as anyone to get in him.
All right, we continue to be on watch for the last coaching hire by Mario Cristobal. Obviously, it's with spring practice starting in about a week and a half, you got to believe that's about to happen. And of course, we reported earlier this week that the hiring of Charlie Strong is now final, even though Miami still hasn't announced it. It is.
I love that. How great is that? It's like another birthday present when they announced that a new coach was hired a month after we and everyone else in the world had said it.
You get two announcements for every coach. It's interesting.
How great is that?
So, that's going to do it for today. We thank you for joining us on Good Morning CaneSport, and hope you guys have a great day. So for Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Hey, Morgan, what are you going to do?
I have to go to practice.
Me too.
Well, don't forget your life wallet.
Oh my gosh, I always forget my life wallet.
You forget everything.
I can't go anywhere without my life wallet.
Life Wallet. Saving time, saving lives.